Welcome along to the show. This is The Property Manager as Guest, where we turn the tables on vacation rental property managers. We invite them to throw open the doors to their rentals and offer us a glimpse of what goes on behind the scenes. They share their struggles, secrets, and champagne-worthy successes. My name's Leo Walton. I'm the host of the show and also a co-founder of Superhog, where we empower safety in the vacation rental world through technology solutions you can trust. Thank you for being here, and hopefully you'll find lots of tips and advice for your own property management business or vacation rental hosting. Hello, and welcome to The Property Manager as Guest. My name's Leo Walton, and in this week's episode, I'm chatting to Saskia van der Bolt. Saskia is the owner of Villa in Umbria, a property management company overseeing 50 self-catering villas in this beautiful part of Italy. We learn how Saskia fell into the industry and why she now can't imagine doing anything else. We look at how the business has changed from when she started and why her secret to finding the best guests is still the same. We hear all about Saskia's challenges as a one-woman business owner in Italy and pinpoint the X factor she looks for when deciding whether or not to take on a new property. There's more with Saskia van der Bolt in this week's episode of The Property Manager as Guest.
So tell us, Saskia, how did you get started in the short-term rental industry?
I actually came to Italy in 2000. I worked in London, had absolutely nothing to do with tourism. Came to live in a very small village where I still live today in Italy, not knowing what to do really. So I accompanied tourists to Rome twice a week. I worked at a reception of a hotel until I ended up working for a Dutch lady who was actually a property manager already at the time. And I stayed with her for about 4 or 5 years. After which I made a switch to Villa in Umbria. The founder of Villa in Umbria actually asked me to work with her. And from 2014, she left and I took over. So I'm still with Villa in Umbria and I'm still managing the Villa in Umbria website.
Amazing. So you learnt the business from the inside and then took it over at the point where someone else was willing to walk away. Interesting. There aren't many hosts in the STR industry who inherit their business or or build on an established business. That's very interesting. It's a very unique road in. When you started working for Villa in Umbria, obviously initially as an employee and then ultimately as the owner, did you love hosting straight away? Was it something you thought, I could see myself spending many years doing this?
No, it's something you roll into really. You just start working and then it becomes interesting and you learn more and you build and there are new challenges and it becomes bigger. And I guess many people can relate to that. It just, it comes by itself. I can't really imagine doing anything else. So it turns around. It's the other way around.
No, I totally understand that. You kind of build on to, but before you know it, years have passed and you've been iterating and growing and improving. Is the business, how recognizable is it from the one that you took over in the time that you've been owning it? Has it changed hugely?
Completely different, yeah, because I started doing this work with the very first time, 2002. So there weren't any websites, or it was just a presentation, one page on a screen, and that was the website. There weren't hardly any property managers at all. They hardly existed. We were told that we were doing something completely illegal and you can't, and all kinds of things. And not having internet, it also meant, you would have small advertisements in magazines or newspapers, or that's and mouth to mouth. So if people came, that was the only really good business we had, the mouth to mouth. And that still is the case, I'm convinced, to this date. It's the best guess you can have. Airbnb didn't exist, Booking didn't exist, so which obviously that also comes to the point. That's what really, really changed the business. Internet and Booking, Airbnb, these big OTAs, that really made a big, big change.
Really important. But I think that people were much more likely to find a villa in a certain part of the world that they loved and then go back time and time again because they could be assured of its quality. Has that been your experience?
Yes, it still is. Though obviously there are also people travel much more now. So it's also easier to go, I often have requests and then they change their minds and no, I'm not booking this year because rather than going to Italy, I'm going to Spain this year. So people travel much easier than they did 10, 15 years ago. At the same time, during COVID, I think I survived COVID thanks to word of mouth. People coming back, people that had already been and knew where they were going. So that's why I say that's still really, really is very, very important, probably for any business.
And tell me, what do you love about this industry?
Well, what's nice about the industry is that you're allowing people to have a holiday, to relax, to something they look out for the rest of the year, or some people really put away money just to go on holiday once a year. So it's nice to be able to offer them a place to stay where they can stay with their friends, family, make good memories. There are worse things, I think. It's a pleasant environment to work in.
What's the most challenging part of your business, would you say?
Well, the most challenging for me probably is that it's a one-woman business. I'm on my own. Partly also thanks to COVID, we were always two, but I'm left on my own, and that makes it really, really challenging because you can't just do it all. It's as simple as that. So you work with, you have to juggle around because you have two clients. You have your house owners and you have your guests coming in. So somehow you're always in the middle. It's very, very challenging, and maybe everywhere, maybe in Italy in particular, but regulations are really tough to keep up with. They keep changing, and it takes away a lot of my time working on regulations, administration, making sure the business is done in a correct way according to whatever new rules they come up with. That makes it really hard, really tough, because that's not the nicest part of the business. I mean, that's not really what you want to do, is it?
Also coming up in this week's episode of The Property Manager as Guest, owner of Villa and Umbria property management company Saskia van der Bol tells us why you should never ignore your gut feeling about an owner and why breaking up with owners is not as hard as you think. As someone who oversees 50 properties, Saskia also shares her best advice for scaling a business in the current landscape, and it's not what you think.
You mentioned having two clients, which I think is a very interesting point that's just worth going back to. And very often you are in the middle of those two clients, right? Making sure that you're being seen to be supporting your owners, but also making sure your guest is having a good experience. Does that balance between host and guest play on your mind when you're considering whether a property, a villa or an STR deal is right for you as a business?
Yes, it is, because I try to choose the houses that I know my guests, as in tourists, would like. Not necessarily what the owner thinks of his or her own house. Because it's pointless to add any house. There are many houses that I'm offered a lot of houses, but I add 2 a year.
Wow. And how many do you have in total?
At the moment, it's about 50.
50. Okay, so you're only adding 2 to 3 years, but your bar for acceptance is very high. When you walk into a property that has the X factor, what is that for you? What makes you think this is going to add to my portfolio? I have to have this.
Well, lately, the last years, I'm very much looking at whether it's a comfortable home, relatively modern, because guests don't want to sit on grandma's chair anymore, it was not a big deal at all until about 10 years ago. But it's becoming, it's important. What is smaller houses also, not huge, big houses, but smaller houses where one or maybe two families can stay. Because it's many families coming to Umbria, or at least my clients are very often. It's not couples or something, it's families with children. There also must be a click with the owner. You must have the idea that you can have a chat over a coffee any day and have a good time. That sounds maybe silly and not very professional. But from my experience, if there is not this click, it's going to be really difficult to work together. Because in the end, with the house owners, it's like a small team. You need to work together. If guests are complaining about whatever, the owner will have to do his best to make sure it doesn't occur again, or things get repaired, or whatever is the case. So a very normal, open relationship with the house owner maybe is even more important than what the house is like.
What would you be saying to someone trying to get into the industry? Would you recommend just going one property by one property, trying to grow organically? Would you say take investment, buy another property management company? Like, how would you advise someone to get to the magic number of, say, something like 50 listings? Because once you get to 50 listings, you've got a real substantial business there. But, you know, by someone who's starting out with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it's hard now in this landscape to think about how you scale. So what would be your kind of big piece of advice?
I think you need to think really well on what kind of houses, villas, apartments, whatever, but you need to think of what you would want to offer, what kind of guests you want to have. Are you gonna stick to a town and offer small apartments for couples, or maybe people that work, that come on a work holiday? Or do you want to focus on big mansions where an extended family can come over for a holiday? You need to make some kind of decision and focus on that. Whatever decision that is, doesn't really matter in the end. Think very much of what would you like. Which kind of guests would you like to talk to, get to know, because it makes it easier. You know, if you know that you are not a corporate person, then don't try to attract corporate people, because that's not going to work.
May I ask then, who is your ideal guest?
I think my ideal guests are families with children. It obviously depends also a little bit because it's a very seasonal business. So families with children will come July, August in summer because the children don't go to school. Still, you need to fill the houses also in spring and autumn. So in these periods, it's mainly couples that travel, and they come for culture. The good food in Italy, good food is a big thing, and many people come for good food. Italian food, the Italian kitchen, the wine.
Can you tell us about the mistakes you've made along the way and what you've learned to get to the point where you are now when it comes to either guests or hosts?
The biggest mistake I think you can make is when you go and look for a new house and you go and visit, and it's beautiful. It's fantastic. You think, oh, this really, really is a house I would like to have in my portfolio. The owner is a bit weird, a bit strange, but okay. You think, no, I have to have this house anyway. Never works. It just never works. The click with the owner has to be there. It's not going to work if it isn't there, because the owner will go his or her own way. They will decide otherwise, or after a year find somebody else or whatever, or just not host the way you think they should host. Because in my case, it's very often the owner himself that actually receives his or her guests. Or they leave the house, you have guests calling and they say, there's a pair of shoes in the middle of the room. These are not ours. It's stupid things like that. I think it's just not worth it.
And Saskia, tell me, how is that process of, how would we describe it? How is the breakup with an owner? How complicated does that become?
I don't. Well, it's until some years ago, I thought, it was really hard to, but no, it's not hard at all anymore, really. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. We all go, I go my own way and he or her goes his own way. The only thing that I always ask for my owners, and that counts for me as well as for the owners, if for whatever reason they don't want to be in my portfolio anymore, they just need to respect the bookings that are there at that time. I don't ask anything else. If they call me that as of tomorrow they're not going to work with me again, that's fine. Just respect the bookings that are already there. I will never go after somebody with a contract that they signed it's completely, I learned that also. Maybe one story that is interesting or funny, now I think it's funny. It wasn't that funny at the time, but beautiful house, lovely villa, great view. I had already rented it for several years. The owner was fantastic. Everything went really well. Until he decided that in the winter period, he was renting it out to a family with children. And they had agreed that over summertime, when the children were out of school, they would move out and he could rent it. That worked fine for some years, especially for the house owner, that worked really, really well, obviously. Until this family decided that they weren't going to move out. Whilst the whole summer was full booked. That was just really, really a headache. I had to move eight or nine, I think, 10, something like that, families to other houses.
Now, Saskia, we've spoken a few times, obviously. I know you well enough to say I think you're quite a relaxed person. Don't let anything sort of get on top of you too much, it would seem. But how would you describe yourself in business terms? Because our audience are interested. They're also fellow hosts in the most part, doing their business in their corner of the world. How do you approach the business? Do you try and control everything? Are you a bit of a control freak, or are you kind of very happy to outsource different parts of it to different people? Are you working long days or? Happy
to outsource. I really don't mind at all. As long as we obviously work in the same direction. At the moment, it's more than a year now. It's over a year now that I work with a Belgian couple who organized Instagram and Facebook for me. And now and then also write a blog or a newsletter. And that works perfectly well. I don't need to think of anything at all. And I don't want to either. So I'm perfectly fine if somebody takes over a part of the business and goes his or her own way, as long as we agree on certain things, obviously. I'm completely happy with that. In fact, let this be, if there are any applicants, I would love to have somebody working with me, together with me on Villa in Umbria. So it's...
Here we go. Is this is the purpose of the interview? Just for you to do a shout out to the community. Does anyone anywhere else in the world want to come to Italy To be honest, I think my partner, now you've said that, might be interested to take this opportunity. She's always saying she wants to live in Italy. I don't think you'll have any problem, Saskia, filling that position. What would you like that person? In an ideal world, what would the partner for you in the business be focused on? What would it allow you to do less of?
Well, being a one-woman business, apart from the fact that I've been able to outsource Instagram, Facebook, the social media, being a one-woman business, you just can't do it all. So it would be fantastic if when you are at least two, but even more maybe, you can focus on something. Like I spoke before about having two clients. Guests, tourists, and house owners. It would be much better if you could focus on one of these, really. And ideally, obviously, I can't do everything.
We have to be. We're competing with other lodging types, hotels, motels, hostels, be it other service departments attached to hotels. So this idea of going the extra mile to give 5-star service remotely, I think has always been one of the wider challenges of the vacation rental industry space. How do you give hotel standard service when you can't just deliver the towels in 5 minutes? What else do you try and do as an operator to give that 5-star service to your guests?
At the moment, I use a digital guidebook, which since I'm using it, people are actually quite enthusiastic to be able to have this. And maybe the main thing is that I'm always available for house owners, but also for guests. And to that point, I have a blog. Villa Umbria actually started as a blog many years ago, and this blog still exists. And here I try to share information about Umbria, what to see, what to do, events, all kinds of things, which I think it's important because you have Airbnb, Booking, and who knows which other big portals. With the blog, I can actually show that I really live here. I'm not somewhere who knows where. I actually live in the area. And if necessary, I actually can come to your holiday home, which on some occasions, if there are, but that's usually not the funnier occasions. The last time I did this, somebody actually broke a leg at the pool, so I did actually go and visit.
Okay, yes, it's not for good news, unfortunately. It's more.
But also in that way, I try to make it as personal as possible. So there's the blog, there's the digital guidebook, availability. People can call. Some people do call to know whether I actually exist. There are a lot of scams on the internet, obviously, and people are aware of that. So I think that's the only way to be different.
If you could go back in time and start the business again, or join the business and then take over the business again, would you do it? Would you do something else?
I would do it, but differently, because now Villa Umbria kind of grew just like that, without a lot of thought behind it. And that's what I said also earlier. If you start now, give it a thought. Give it a thought to whom you really, really want to. What kind of houses, what kind of guests. Do you really want to be big, or is it better to stay small? And maybe if I could do it differently, I would even do it completely differently, as in only like on consultancy basis, giving the opportunity to a house owner to build up their home, make sure they can book, find guests, set it all up for them, and have them walk away with it themselves. So that's more like a consultancy.
Yeah, setting up a self-serve model for them to be able to be in control of it. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I can see why in your market you say that, because I'm right in thinking you don't do any of the cleaning, right? Your owners do that. Yes, you're basically providing. One of the core things that you provide is marketing services for these people, which actually you probably could box and teach them how to do it, and then walk away a bit more.
Yeah, I think I could, or at least for some house owners, because we're still in Italy though, which means that many house owners don't speak anything else than Italian. There are also house owners that have no idea about the internet. You know, they probably look at YouTube and that's about it. So there's still a market for that in Italy. But when the younger generation obviously is much, much, much more able to do things themselves. They don't need you anymore. And a lot of house owners now just are happy to put their house on Airbnb and then that's it. Which I think really, really is a pity. What I also see, there's a big difference here, at least here in Umbria, and probably in the whole of Italy. There are Italian house owners and foreign house owners. So people from the north of Europe or wherever they come from and have a second home. Or Italian house owners that have inherited their grandmother's home and don't know what to do with it. That's a very different approach. Somebody who comes from abroad, either they are too busy and really don't want to know, so that they want you to do it. But most of them are very competent in managing their own guest communication, etc. Whilst for Italian house owners, that's much less the case because they don't speak the language. They very often, a few of the house owners are builders. They really don't want to know. They have a beautiful home because they constructed it themselves, but they don't want to know anything else. Somebody from abroad, instead, has a completely different background. And they don't really, what they need is somebody who cleans the house and a gardener. And all the rest they do themselves.
What's, for you, your most important piece of technology? What's the first Chrome tab you open when you start your day in the morning?
The first Chrome tabs I open is my email, the program I use for email, and my PMS. That is the PMS. Without PMS, you can't do a thing, really. Until some years ago, that was quite possible, no problem at all. But now you really can't do it without it anymore.
Yeah, it's vital, isn't it? And on that, does that mean you're the type of host who has one PMS and sticks with it? Or do you jump around, try all the different ones out?
No. I am now, I think it's from 2017 already, because you learn to work with it. If you skip 1 year this one and 1 year the other one, you never learn to work with it, really. And that is pointless, I think.
Yeah, so I'm not surprised to hear you say that. So let's go back. So you open your email and you open your PMS. And if you're looking at what to add into your product mix, will you be swayed by how integrated it is to the PMS that you're working with?
Nowadays, it's important that they have an integration with Airbnb booking and as many platforms as possible. And also with other service providers, really, other tech providers. I work with Superhawk via my PMS.
We focused our attention a few times on curating your properties to your guests. You know, when you're picking your property, think about the guests you want to serve. So we focused on the positive side of hosting guests. Obviously, there can be some negatives. Not all guests are fantastic guests. Can you think of any particular horror stories of guests that you've encountered over the years?
A few years ago, I had guests that in the end actually it was the house owner who took care of his own house. So receiving the guests and cleaning it. From the first day, this guest called that the air conditioning wasn't working in one of the rooms. So the house owner went, fixed it, it all worked fine. Next day, it's not working again. But it's only during the night that it doesn't work. Little bit weird, is it? And there was a lot of things. In the end, the owner and the guest just were in a fight. It was amazing. In the end, the guest actually called the carabinieri, the police, to get the owner off the grounds.
So you must have learned a lot over the years of how to make sure that you're surpassing those expectations and providing a 5-star service. That must have been you must have tips and tricks and things you do to make the guests feel special.
Making the bookings process as smooth as possible, making sure that owners or caretakers or whoever know they know what they need to do, resolving problems as soon as possible, because problems can always happen. That's resolving them as soon as possible. Keep having an open relationship, even if you think that the person is not particularly sympathetic.
I meet lots of property managers who are in the process of thinking about exiting the industry. Do you have an exit strategy? Do you think it's important to have one, or do you think just go all in and enjoy yourself while you're in?
Well, actually, I never thought of it until recently. It may have to do with age or something like that. I don't know. But actually, when I stepped into Villa Umbria, the founder of Villa Umbria worked with me for, I can't remember, 6, 7, 8 years. I can't remember how many it was. And then I took over from her. It would be ideal, as far as I can see, it would be really ideal to find somebody to work with me together, simply, who would then take over in the same way. I think that's it, because it would be a pity to just sell, because to whom are you going to sell? It's going to be part of some kind of other big business. That really is a pity. And it's all the work that has gone in over the years to just throw it away and just close. That's not really what I want to do either. So ideally, just like the founder of Villa Umbria did, it would be great to find somebody to work with in a pleasant way, building on Villa Umbria, making it even more smooth, making it work better. And after which I can slowly but surely step back. That's ideal. It really is ideal. It's also ideal because when it happened to me, you already know all the house owners. You know all the people, you know how it works. So it's also really smooth. It's not an obstacle for nobody if somebody would take over in that way. Everything stands with the relationship you have with the house owners, really. So it's very important that remains. And if somebody just simply takes over, that's going to be really hard.
One more question for you. Just this is the one I'm always intrigued. You're a very relaxed person anyway, but I'm going to say, it is a tough industry, clearly a very stressful industry. What do you do to help relax and blow off steam at the end of a tough day?
At the start of every day, I go for a walk every day. And I do that the Italian way, as in I go for a walk and stop by at the bar to have a cappuccino, chat with the local people, because in Italy we have this habit of going to the bar in the morning, and everybody has its same. So if you go at the same time to the same bar every morning, you meet the same people every morning. They're all on their way to work or wherever they go, which is a nice start of the day, really. and I go to the gym 3 times a week. So for me, it's important to move. The work I do is a lot of sitting behind the computer.
I love it. I love both those answers. And I really like that idea that actually there's something quite nice about the repetition of seeing the same faces, having those lighter conversations before you get into the serious conversations of work. I think they'd call it, wouldn't they, the power of the loose tie or the weak tie? You know, this idea that there's faces, you might not even know everyone's name, but you have a little chat over your cappuccino. That's it's a very nice thought, Saskia. When I wake up tomorrow morning in rainy, cold London, I'll think, I wish I was in Umbria having a walk and a coffee with Saskia.
Yeah. You can come by and we'll have a coffee together in my local bar.
That sounds perfect. I'm going to hold you to that. Saskia, thank you so much.
In the next episode, we chat with Heather Fillmore Brown, CEO of Staylux Properties in Utah. You can find out how Heather built her company in 30 days at the age of 50, what drives her to keep going when the going gets tough, and why 40 properties is her magic number. Follow us on LinkedIn or Instagram at Superhog. And if you have any questions or you'd like to be featured on a future show, get in touch with us in the comments section below. Goodbye for now.